Hey everybody, what is going on? I am Maximus Rex and this is Big Baby Reviews. Before we look at today's comic, today is episode 200 of Big Baby Reviews. Thank you so much, all of you out there who are subscribed, who are still supporting me. Those of you who are watching the videos and are not subscribed, thank you, but please subscribe. That helps the channel grow, helps get us out there to other people, and hopefully we can hit our next milestone of 500 subscribers sooner rather than later. So that's what I'm going for. So can't believe I've done 200 episodes of this. I've 200 times of me sitting down with a comic and talking about it. It's kind of crazy to think about already being at 200, but I'm down for doing 2,000 more. We'll see how far we can get with the channel, how big we can get as well. So today is, even though it's the 200th episode, the schedule stays the same. So this is Saturday. Hope you're having a great weekend. It is Erik Larsen Day, so we're looking at the next issue in his Savage Dragon run. We're specifically right now in that period from the early 90s. And we are looking at issue number 12, which unfortunately I did order, I think a little too late, from my comic shop. I do have a box that's supposed to be coming in the next week or so. So once I get that, I'll be doing an unboxing. I did order Savage Dragon number 12. Unfortunately, didn't come in time for this review, and I got to move on. So I was looking at my collection thinking maybe I can look at some Savage Dragon crossover issues I have. Basically, all I have left is Savage Dragon Martial Law, or is it Martial Law Savage Dragon? I'm not quite sure, but for some reason I haven't filed it in with my Savage Dragon comic, so it's probably in the Martial Law pile, which is in another pile because it hasn't been filed yet, so I just couldn't find those issues. And, going through my actually filed issues of Savage Dragon, I realized that's true. Before I started collecting the single issues, I actually bought a few trade paperbacks of the early issues of Savage Dragon. So I was like, oh my God, hopefully I've got issue 12 in there. Thankfully, I did. In this trade paperback here, Savage Dragon, Erik Larsen Possessed, is the trade that's going to, help me get through issue 12 today. And that's what we're going to be using. So thank you, Savage Dragon Possessed. This trade paperback isn't formatted, like most trade paperbacks. Usually you have the cover and then the story and then the next issue cover and the story. This one's not like that. The covers are all at the end. So basically what I'm going to do is open it up here to where the covers are. So you can at least, or we can at least have a look at issue 12. Hopefully I haven't lost my focus here. So Enter She-Dragon is the issue that we're going to be looking at. And this is the cover you'd be looking at if I had the single issue. So Enter She-Dragon. I don't know if that's some sort of sexual innuendo, if that's done on purpose. Some of these, I talked about with the Rob Liefeld this week, Prophet Cometh, Enter She-Dragon. I feel like any of these where they can be misconstrued, or have a second or third degree of a sexual connotation, maybe should be avoided a little bit. But at the same time, maybe it's funny and it's when I say avoided, it's not like I'm offended or anything. I just, my mind just goes there, and maybe it's just my problem actually. So we'll move on. Cover looks great, good introduction to the character in that she's, right up front and obvious on the cover, which makes sense. We've got, this version of Super Patriot that harkens back to the old Super Patriot, so I'm not quite sure what's going on there. We'll find out in the issue. And that's why he's on the cover. He's in the issue as well. Do want to mention last review yesterday with Todd McFarlane, we talked about some of the texture he adds to hair and stuff. I feel like the texture Erik Larsen is using here is very McFarlane-y, if I can say it that way. It's almost like, in a weird way, when I look at this image, like Larsen's inked the whole thing, except for the hair. McFarlane just came in and did that. I don't know if it's on purpose, if it's intentional or not, or if, maybe he saw McFarlane, use that texture and was kind of like, yeah, I'll lift that and use it on my art, right? Artists do that all the time. So there you go. That's the cover. And let's go have a look at the issue. Thankfully, it is the first issue in the trade. So I just got to flip through a few pages here and I'll be right where I need to be. All right. So boom, starts off with a punch in the face here on this splash page. And that's Mighty Man getting punched in the face by Overpower. That's a pretty interesting name. Starts off with a brawl. Erik Larsen, very adept at drawing brawls, but also interweaving interesting plot points and story points and moving the story along, interconnecting stuff, which I'll talk about in this issue as well, because there's some interesting plot points, from B and C stories that start weaving their way once again into the A story. So, I'll try to point that out as we go past that. So Overpower getting his ass handed to him back by Mighty Man. If you don't know by now, Mighty Man is actually a woman, a nurse. We found out about that last issue. Is it 11? Yeah, makes sense. With Super Patriot attacking, and she had no choice but to reveal herself as the new Mighty Man. So not quite generally as aggressive as a male figure, maybe, but now she's kind of letting loose on this guy to save people. And she's very medically minded, so she's already says here, I'm concerned about possible spinal damage. I'm going to grab an ambulance and trained medical personnel from Hillman Hospital. So somewhat well trained for the aftermath of superhero squabbles, right? This is very interesting. We get a shot here very similar to issue 7 of Savage Dragon, where Dragon and Frank are going up to Overlord's penthouse to take him down or arrest him, or I guess something like that. And last time Overlord just blasted Frank and he disintegrated. What we found out in subsequent issues is that wasn't actually Frank. Frank is safe and he's been flown away, I guess with another identity, with his family and stuff, to another place. We don't know exactly where that is right now. And it was revealed that Dragon had actually used this kind of robot duplicator character who was a friend of, I guess, owned or was a robot of Vanguard, another Larsen verse character. And that was actually who, he can take the different form of other characters. So he can look like, in that issue with Vanguard, I'm not being very clear here, when Dragon meets Vanguard in the issue 3 of Vanguard, this robot is kind of a duplicate of Vanguard first, and that's who Dragon attacks, and eventually the typical misunderstanding. Eventually the good Vanguard shows up and shows him that he's just this weird robot replicant thing. And we don't know this, but when they go see Overlord, Frank and Dragon, it's not actually Frank, it's the replicant. And that's why he's blasted away, but we still see Frank safe, flown away to a secret city, secret location. And basically what's happening here is that the replicant, even after being disintegrated, can slowly reform himself. And because his last, kind of command was to go attack or take down Overlord, he's reintegrated and now is back on the elevator to Overlord's penthouse, much to the dismay of Overlord himself. And it's kind of cool because it does harken back to issue 7 in another way as well, in that, during issue 7, it was an all splash page issue. So this page, both splashes, and again, really kind of harken back and fit well with that issue 7 storyline. And there you go, fries him again. So Overlord, be gone, filthy apparition, be gone, Overlord commands it. Something is very wrong here. So obviously Overlord's like, what the hell is going on? This is a pretty funny sequence. I won't read anything specifically, but basically all this fan mail the Dragon's getting from all these people who are claiming to be brothers, sisters, they were abducted by aliens together, etc., etc. And Dragon says, I thought I got a lot of crackpot mail before. So yeah, he's just got a stack of letters on his desk. Some good cartooning here, great expressions generally in Savage Dragon. One of the image artists who I think is pretty adept at using facial expressions, much more so than I would say Jim Lee, Rob Liefeld, and maybe Mark Silvestri, or those studios anyways, are the masters of kind of, one or two expressions for faces, where Eric Larson, Dale Keown, McFarlane are definitely more adept at facial expressions, which I think is important in comics. So this new Super Patriot character is introduced here, kind of a klutz, I guess. Eventually catches these characters, thinks they're dealing drugs. So he's like, these two guys are like, we give up, man, we give up. Yeah, man, take the chips. They ain't worth this kind of grief. Computer chips? I thought you were selling drugs. What have I stumbled onto? And this guy, that's a good line. I think I'll just shut up if you don't mind. Let me talk to a lawyer. All right, racing to the scene. Our Dragon and a partner, and we meet up with this creepy looking fellow with the, crack down the middle of his face, and obviously that's going to lead to something kind of weird, right? I've talked about before how Eric Larson is very adept at creating lots of different interesting characters and body horror kind of characters, which is what we're getting here. So he's got kind of an octopus friend here who's helping him out. So this new Super Patriot busts in, finds some dead guys, and She-Dragon as well. Of course, we've got the typical superhero misunderstanding. One thinks the other is responsible for the death of these guys here. So the battle ensues with She-Hulk. And I found out, I didn't know this, but she says, "Dragon, great to see you again." They met in the Savage Dragon versus Savage Megaton Man #1. So she was actually one of the Next Men or the Next Men. It was a parody of the Next Men by John Byrne, right? So I guess Larsen figured out that, you know, by creating that analog back for just this one issue, that he could maybe use, or excuse me, just tap the phone here, the camera, that she might be good for a story later on. So that's why he introduced her here, I guess. If he worked out something in the plot that she could bring some conflict to the book, right? Or some interesting plot line. So Dragon goes after this character, and here's where we get to find out exactly what his head is. And what it is a giant vagina with teeth, it seems like, and a huge tongue clitoris thing. Obviously I kid, but that looks pretty cool. I think that's a good kind of choice there. It's like a bit of a Predator, I guess, is how I describe it. Predator Aliens kind of vibe. And of course that mouth is going to clomp onto, I was going to say clamp, but the sound effect says clomp, so I kind of like that. Clomp onto Savage Dragon's head, right? And we get a cool kind of sequence here. More body horror and gore, where it seems like Dragon's kind of putting his thumb through this character's eye, and enough to get him to open his mouth, kind of pry his mouth open, and Dragon just basically ripped his tongue off. And everyone's kind of horrified. Pretty good sequence. Clearly Larsen is into body horror. And Dragon's still a pretty good guy, because he says, "Get an ambulance, keep an eye on the sucker's tongue. Maybe the doctors can sew it back on." Isn't he thoughtful? So, you know, basically the She-Dragon's trying to convince Dragon to let her be his partner, and he's just not into it at all. And "You're not my partner," he says. "You'll never be my partner. You're useless. Worse than that. You're coming with me to the station. Come on." And she says, "Poop, could I be your girlfriend then?" And then, obviously this is the trade paperback, so this is the next issue. We're not going to look at that, but I really do like, again, story-wise, Eric Larsen, the best of the Image writers, I definitely think, creates kind of the more interesting storyline to follow with with Savage Dragon. Probably the best comic storyline-wise to read month in and month out. I don't know about today, but at least back in the day, I think it was. So Overlord says this sucker was Frank Darling, that Frankie showed up again alive trying to arrest him. So remember the kind of robot doppelganger, right? That ain't possible, because Overlord already fried him once before. Overlord wants an explanation. So you got the scientist kind of guy here. Yes. Remains quite fine. Still, picture's clear. This not human, not Darling. Never was. So now they know, and Overlord is going to know, obviously, that this is not Frank Darling, that it's something else. So what exactly is going on, we don't know, but we will find out in subsequent issues. So there you have it, guys. Savage Dragon #12, part of the Savage Dragon Possessed trade paperback. Do you have any questions, comments, concerns? Let me know below. You know how that works. Those of you who are subscribed and are still watching my videos, thank you so much for your loyalty. I appreciate you hanging around. Those of you who are not subscribed but who are watching, please do so below. It only takes a second. Really helps the channel, helps us grow, helps get us out there to other like-minded people who are into comic books just like we are. Thank you so much for watching, and everyone out there have an awesome day. King Comics presents Big Baby, Volume 1, Issues 1 to 13. 204 pages of story and art. King Comics also presents Star Crasher one-shot, 32 pages, cosmic sci-fi surrealist adventure. You can find these fine comics at kingcomics.ca, at MaximusRex13 on Instagram, or on Facebook, MaxRex or Big Baby.
Like, subscribe!